DNA. The Sengol from the Chola era and handed over to Jawaharlal Nehru as a symbol of power transfer is being labelled as bogus by his own party, the Indian National Congress. The Congress has alleged that there is no documented evidence to suggest that Sengol was used as a symbol of the transfer of power from the British to India. This is despite the fact that there is ample evidence available about the Sengol, its history and its significance, why it was used in the first place. So BJP is up in the arms. Home Minister Amit Shah has hit back at the Congress and questioned why it harbours so much hatred towards Indian culture and traditions. Slamming the grand old party, Home Minister said that Congress banished the sceptre to a museum as a mere walking stick. From a symbol of power to a mere walking stick, was the Sengol overlooked or deliberately suppressed and sidelined to the margins of Indian history? Why is it that not many of us knew of its significance till today, or even how it was used and why at the time of independence? Has the Sengol and the fight over it then become a symbol of aspects of Indian history being sidelined? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. First, more on what is the political fight over the Sengol itself. So after a fight over the need for a new parliament, to the inauguration by the Prime Minister, now the Congress has opened another front over the significance of the Sengol itself. So the Congress alleges that the Sengol was not a symbol of transfer of power. The BJP has said that the Thiruvavadurai Adinam itself spoke about the importance of the Sengol used at the time of independence with Jawaharlal Nehru, and of course there is the picture of him with it. The Congress also sought to hit back at the BJP over claims that the Sengol was not given due prominence. Jairam Ramesh said on Twitter that what Nehru said on Indian history and artifacts is a public record, whatever the labels may say. This is because the BJP has hit out at the Congress party saying that the sacred Sengol symbolizing India's freedom was banished as a mere walking stick in the Allahabad Museum. Congress also says that the Sengol has been used by the current Prime Minister and drum beaters for political ends with embroidered facts. Home Minister Amit Shah hit back at the Congress saying that it hates Indian traditions and culture. Now, the fight over the Sengol is indeed curious. Everyone accepts that historically it was used as a symbol of transfer of power from one king to another. The very use of the Sengol during independence or the time of independence and the fact that the British ruler of the time handed it over to the first Indian Prime Minister will naturally suggest that its significance was indeed to suggest transfer of power ceremonially. But for some reason, the Congress is insisting it doesn't mean anything. Then, why was it used? Now, here is what the Thiruvavadurai Adinam, the mutt that arranged the gold sceptre for Nehru, said. We were invited to conduct a ritual to symbolize transfer of power. The Swami who presented it to Nehru also made it clear that the Sengol is a symbol of self-rule. This statement has been released to counter what the Congress today has said on the entire ceremony. Meanwhile, BJP has also pointed to Time magazine's article dated August 25, 1947, which said, Sri Amlavan thought that Nehru, as first Indian head of a really Indian government, ought, like ancient Hindu kings, to receive the symbol of power and authority from Hindu holy men, unquote. Congress leader Ramesh also shared an article from the Hindu newspaper to buttress his point that Sengol claims by BJP are bogus, but the same newspaper also says the following in another report, and I quote, a well-known historian and researcher of Sangam literature told the Hindu that the handing over of the sceptre to denote the transfer of power has been in practice for nearly 2000 years since the Sangam age. So if the symbol that the Sengol is of transfer of power, then what is the objection over it today? Why the insistence to question the symbolism itself? Sengol, the word comes from the Tamil word semai. Semai means righteousness. A new king in ancient Indian Hindu kingdoms was presented with the Sengol, which was meant to signal a transfer of power, and on this nobody really disagrees. And it was also supposed to be a reminder to the recipient that they now have the decree to rule justly and fairly. So the big debate that's coming up today, this Sengol fight, why first of all has this fight even erupted? And has the Sengol, because it was forgotten for so long, for 75 years almost, that nobody really knew about it and it was relegated as a walking stick, has it also become a symbol of India's suppressed history?
country's dignity, country's prosperity is increasing day by day. Therefore, Congress Party, by creating unnecessary controversy, trying to divert the attention of the people from the India's progress and the basic issues related to the nation.
गांधी खानदान वाकई में हमारे देश के इतिहास, हमारे देश के लोकतंत्र के बारे में क्या सोचता है?
Dated Tughlaq Tamil magazine had an article written by Shri Gurumurthy ji on this Sengol story. Wanted this to be part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It has come to a point when it will be permanently installed in the very temple of our democracy.
First up, I want to go across to Shashi Shekhar Vempati, former CEO of Prasar Bharati. He's also the author of a book on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Mann Ki Baat. So thanks a lot for your time. The Sengol is widely accepted amongst all historians as a symbol of transfer of power. Of course, it was used in Hindu kingdoms before. But today, the Congress Party is insisting that when it was used at the time of India's independence from the British to Indians, it was not meant to be a symbol of transfer of power. You've called this mental gymnastics. Can you share more of your view of what you feel about the Congress's objection to the Sengol being recognized as a symbol of transfer of power?
Right. So since this issue has surfaced a couple of days back, when the Honorable Home Minister in a press conference shared the background and the history of the sceptre and its historical significance, I think there's been all kinds of reactions, not just the political parties. There are others as well who are trying to put a spin on it. The point is this: when on the eve of Indian independence, on the 14th of August, right late into the evening, just before the Tryst of Destiny speech would be delivered, why would the Prime Minister designate go out of his way to attend an event of this nature at his residence, receive this symbol, and it is covered not just by the domestic media in India, it is covered by Time magazine. And why would they go to these lengths if it is not significant symbol from a cultural standpoint?
Right.
I think that is the question that needs to be answered. The second question is, even if we accept all the other arguments, why was it consigned to a museum and labeled as a walking stick, right? So that doesn't make sense. Who would want to receive a walking stick on the eve of independence when it's the most momentous occasion, not just of your personal life journey, but for the entire country, right? So there itself lies the hypocrisy and the contradictions around this entire issue. And as you rightly pointed out, the danda has been a symbol of the rule of law, sovereignty, from time immemorial, along with the white umbrella or the chhatra, right? And you see this across texts, be it Arthashastra, be it any of the famous Indian texts. These are constant symbols that occur at every point in history of time, not just Tamil Nadu, not just South India, but across the country. So it is but fitting that this symbol was given to Pandit Nehru at that time, and I think it deserves a rightful place in India's democratic history. So the new parliament building is perhaps the right place.
So that brings me to my next question. If it is so obvious that at that time it was meant to symbolize in a very historic Hindu ceremonial way a transfer of power, and there is, as you said, mental gymnastics and hypocrisy going on, my next natural question is, why would the Congress do so? Why would the Congress bring down the glory of the ceremony that its own former Prime Minister was part of? What could be the motive?
See, it's a very interesting question. If you look at what has happened over the last 2.5, 3 years, right, since the time the new parliament building has been envisaged, there has been a constant attempt to undermine this effort. Just because, not because the parliament is old or it's out of capacity, which is an issue that earlier speakers, earlier governments have raised, but only because it is the Modi government that has undertaken this task. If you look at the history of litigation in the Supreme Court, just to stall this project and somehow undermine it, delegitimize it. So you see a pattern. Now, clearly, having staked such a political position, it's very difficult for them to climb down, and this entire sceptre issue has caught them off guard because it is not just a Hindu symbol, but it is a Hindu symbol received by none
Pandit
other
Nehru.
than Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who is sort of the icon of secular politics in democratic India. So that has kind of taken the wind of their sails, and hence it is natural the way they are reacting because they have run out of arguments to make. Hence, you have these really absurd and contradictory statements, especially when they have no clue why it was classified or labeled as a walking stick and just consigned away to a corner in a museum.
That was going to be my next question, Shashi Shekhar. The central point I'm also discussing today, that this Sengol was unheard of. Not many people knew about it in India and its significance till today, when it has been almost resurrected, as you said, from corners of a museum and labelled as a walking stick. Is this Sengol not becoming a symbol itself of many aspects of India's glorious history being suppressed over the years, and especially post-independence era?
True, because what we have seen is that, for example, take the textbooks issue, right? We have, so many glorious empires barely talked about in the textbooks, be it the Chola Empire, be it the Vijayanagar Empire. So there has been a pattern of glorifying certain aspects of Indian history and suppressing certain aspects of Indian history, and I think this example fits within it. However, let me also point out, it's not that the Sengol was completely forgotten all these decades. In fact, I stumbled earlier today on a 1980 edition, volume number 27 of the Sainik Samachar, periodical that is released by the Defense Department, where you have a recollection of this incident on the 14th of August 1947, where military personnel who were present physically at that time recall the scepter being handed to Pandit Nehru. So at various points in time, people have recalled and recollected this incident. It is just that it has not, found its place, rightful place in the mainstream milieu, and I think that is what is going to happen tomorrow. I'm sorry, day after.
Day after. Let me just take your final word on the new parliament itself. Just a short while ago, the government has released the pictures of the new majestic parliament. And of course, it is looking as good as everybody expected it to. The Prime Minister has also invited the public of the country to do their own voiceover over these visuals of the new parliament with the hashtag #MyParliament, So clearly the government wants the average public to be involved and to really feel proud about this new beginning for India.
Absolutely, and I think this has been a consistent pattern with Prime Minister Modi. In fact, when I was researching for the Man Ki Baat book, which you pointed out right at the beginning, you see a pattern of these reach out efforts where he has made the citizens a part of momentous occasions of this nature, be it Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, be it Swachh Bharat, be it the various anniversaries that were observed along the way, with Mahatma Gandhi, be it Netaji, and so on. So it is kind of fitting that he has called for citizens to react to these visuals and take pride, because I think there has to be a sense of ownership. We have to own this new parliament building, just like we have to own the Vande Bharat trains, every other symbol of a modern new India, that is looking ahead to the future while drawing inspiration from the past. So that would be my thought, that this new parliament is a clean break from the colonial past. It is a symbol of aspiration, a symbol for the future.
But wouldn't it be a little bit of a spanner in the works or a dampening of the occasion that so many opposition parties are choosing to boycott it?
Well, I think so many other parties are also choosing to participate. In fact, if you look at Andhra Pradesh, for example, it's a complete bipartisan support with both the TDP and the ruling YSRCP supporting it. Neighboring Odisha, you have the BJD, which is the primary party there. It is supporting it. So I wouldn't get too worked up about who is not supporting. I think there is a large bipartisan support, and I think we should build on that and take this country forward.
All right, Shashi Shekhar Vempati, thanks a lot for your comments. Thanks a lot for joining us. Let's also take this to our other guests joining us. So why the politics over the Sengol to begin with? Narayan Tirupati is spokesperson Tamil Nadu BJP with us. Meeta Chakravarti from the Congress party. Desh Rattam Nigam is political analyst. Pradeep Chakravarti is author and historian. I'm also waiting for Sriram Sheshadri, who's a political analyst from the state of Tamil Nadu. I want to go across to Pradeep first. Pradeep, the Sengol is widely accepted, recognized as a symbol of transfer of power. The fact that it was used at a momentous occasion just on the stroke of our independence, was handed over to Lord Mountbatten and then from him to Jawaharlal Nehru, it can only signify that it was meant ceremoniously as a handing over of power. But today the Congress insists that no, it did not mean that. So I'm wondering, what did it mean then? Why did anyone go through such a ceremony in the first place if it didn't mean anything? And what did it mean then?
So, thank you. Firstly, I'm very happy that people in the north have started looking at people in the south and incorporating our traditions into the overall national narrative. I think for a long time we've been neglected, and I'm happy this is happening. If you look at the earliest references to the Sengol, they come from Sangam literature, which is from about 300 BCE till about 300 CE. In all those 6 or 7 references, mostly in the Purananuru, there is no reference to the Sengol being a symbol of transfer of power. Here is a beautiful verse. I'm just quoting one line. Aram Purindanne Sengol Natathu Muregvendu Purudin Budaneniyor Indra. So Velekudi Naganar, he sings to Kalamarathu Tunjiya Killivalavan, who's a Chola king, and he says, if you hold your scepter straight, Sengol Natathu, if you hold it straight, Arampurin, then there will be dharma in what you do. And when there is dharma, your people, if they ask for a few drops of water, they will get pouring rain. That your umbrella will stretch so much across the skies that it will shield the people. So basically, the Sengol, like the other symbols of kingship, was to teach or remind the king all the time that he had to be unwavering like that stick.
Okay.
And incidentally, we don't know how a Chola period Sengol looked, but everybody has forgotten the oldest continuously ruling dynasty, which is the Pandyas. In early Pandya inscriptions, you actually have an image of how the Sengol looked. It did not look like the one that we are seeing today on the screen. It actually looked like the shepherd's crook. So it was in a way telling the king that your shepherd, your flock is your responsibility, your people are your responsibility. Like the shepherd takes care of its sheep, you should also look after them. So that must have how this whole concept came about.
All right,
so
but is it
Sengol,
correct?
you had the Venkode, which was the white umbrella, you had the sword, you had the tree, you had the flagstaff, and then you had the crown. All of these were symbols of kingship.
All right, but is it correct that this was transferred from one king to another?
Well, we don't know. That's the truth. I mean, the king definitely had it. Did a religious authority give it to them, or did somebody else give it? We honestly don't know.
Okay.
So I don't know whether this is so much a transfer of power symbol. If you read the Sangam poems, the poets, and there are 6 or 7 references to the word Sengol, the poets are very, very clear. They say the Sengol represents the power of the king to be just. And not let his personal passions override himself.
To rule justly and fairly, right?
And fairly. Yeah. Which is why in the Silapadigaram, when the king causes Kovalan to be killed without a fair trial, one of the first things that happens is the scepter automatically breaks.
Okay. Can I also bring in Sriram Sheshadri? How do you look at this controversy breaking out before I go to our political representatives? Symbol of power or not symbol of power? What was it used as and for on the eve of independence, at the stroke of independence?
Good evening. See, the scepter, handover of scepter is only a symbolism. Whether this was done during the olden days or not, definitely we know that this was done in 1947 when the India attained independence. That cannot be ruled out as a history. That is very well documented, even though Congress may deny that it doesn't exist. That is, it is a farcical statement that no such event happened.
No, they're not saying that. They're not saying that. They're just saying that it was, the government never meant it to be a symbol of transfer of power. I'm just trying to decode that. If it was not a symbol of transfer of power, then what was it? Why even the need to do this?
Congress did say, Mr. Jairam Ramesh tweeted this morning saying that no documented evidence whatsoever that the symbol of power transfer from Mountbatten to Nehru happened. like the way, this has been described. No, this is very much documented. There are, forget about, we don't believe in Indian documentation. At least, we are very much, comfortable when a foreign national white skin says that. Time magazine on 24th August 1947 published this entire statement. And from Tamil Nadu official state document, policy document on HR and CE until 2021-22 had the reference of Thiruvavudurai Adinam transferring the power through handover of the sceptre to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister from British.
So there seems to be a disagreement on it. You could believe, Pradeep has a different view, you have a different view. Let me just open this up to some of our other guests as well. Meeta Chakrabarty, let me come to you. What is the objection that the Congress party is raising on the Sengol? Because this happened when the Congress received power at the hands of the British at the time of independence, and the first anointed Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, received it. There was an elaborate ceremony. It was handed over to Lord Mountbatten first, then to him. So why are you trying to suggest that it isn't important or isn't significant?
So it is, good evening to all your viewers firstly, and secondly, it is not about whether we are trying to undermine the significance or whether we are trying to suggest otherwise. We are simply stating that going by historical references and the documentation that we have, it is not amply evident. Even in your panel, there has been a disagreement as whether this was indeed a symbol for transfer of power. That's number one.
So what is the point that you're coming at? Once again,
about whether it's a symbol of transfer
once again, what I want to understand, Meeta ji, what I want to understand is that by harping on that point, that it is not well documented whether this was a symbol of transfer of power, what is the point you're getting at?
If you give me some uninterrupted time, I'll try and explain. So firstly, my point is that there are not enough historical evidences which documents whether it was indeed a transfer of power or not. Secondly, one of my co-panelists talked about that this should imply, this should stand for just and inclusive governance. Now, my point is, on the day of inauguration, not one or two, not half a dozen, not a dozen, but as many as 20 opposition political parties have decided to boycott this particular ceremony because the president, the first citizen to whom the parliament rightfully belonged to as per the constitution, Article 79, was sidelined and was not invited to be part of this inauguration. Now, what do these 20 opposition political parties represent? As per the 2019 general election data, they represent 60% of the popular mandate. BJP and BJP-led NDA scored less than 40%, which means 60% of people voted for one of these 20 opposition parties who are staying away. So when we talk about just and inclusive governance, your ceremony is staying away from 60% people's mandate.
Ma'am, I've discussed that as far as the battle over the boycott of the parliament inauguration is concerned. We've discussed that for the last few days. I want to focus on the Sengol issue today. I want to ask you one more time. What is it that the Congress party wants to tell the public when it says that this Sengol was not meant as a symbol of transfer of power? So
because
what does that mean?
As far as our historical references are concerned, we have not seen any particular conclusive evidence which says that it was meant to be a symbol for transfer of power.
So it should be considered what? A mere walking stick?
There is a much bigger point that the temple of democracy, parliament, a place that was meant for debate, discussion and dissent, is now being sidelined to a place where we are only emphasizing on event management. I know our Prime Minister believes in having large events where he is the star of attraction. So congratulations to him. But bear in mind that in this even managed event, 60% of people's mandate and their representatives.
All right, let me go across to Narayan Tirupati of the BJP as well.
That this democracy, the temple of democracy is being undermined. We can have big gala events, we can have big
All right, Meeta ji, please yield. I want to go across to Narayan Tirupati of the BJP as well. Narayan Tirupati, the Congress is insisting that you have embroidered facts. You have embroidered facts to drum beat, and somehow attached a piece of history to the Sengol, which was not originally meant to be so.
No, see, as Mr. Sriram Seshadri had said, it's not only the Times magazine. Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins, in 1975, they have written a book. You can note that, Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins. And it was that book was translated by the leftists, Mr. Raghavan and one Mr. Maile Balu. They have translated it. And in that translation, you can see in the 344th page, it's very, very clearly written about the entire episode. Not only that, they have given the Sengol, how they took that Sengol to Mr. Nehru's place and how they handed it over to him. And you have got in our reference, I have got one Mr. N. Ilango. This is the book. In this book, it is told as 100 years of India's story. It is very clearly written how they have transferred it. So, why I am telling you is that even in Tamil Nadu, we have seen that the Tamil Nadu, more than for centuries, thousands of years, it is the practice. And it is very clear that Mr. Rajaji had instructed or had advised the then Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, to accept this. In fact, in the book written by Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins, they have very clearly stated that though Mr. Nehru was an atheist, he acknowledged this, accepted it, because for the welfare of the country. That means Mr. Nehru wanted the country to be well, but now these Congress people, they don't want. And I think it is anti-Tamil. They don't want to give credit to Tamils. That is what the Congress is doing. See, I am a proud Tamilian now today that from my town, this has happened and it is going to be decorated again in the parliament.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I want to go back across to Mr. Sriram one more time. I asked Pradeep this question since both of you are, delving into history. The moot point is, if this Sengol, the sceptre, was used as a symbol of transfer of power, was it done so 2000 years ago amongst Hindu kings from one king to another? Because yes, other than that, there cannot be any relevance to a transfer of power.
So I will go first. Like our historian said, that, there are references in our ancient scripts about the sceptre and the white umbrella, which signify, and of course the simhasan, the throne, which three of that signifies the power of the king, power of the ruler. What other way that the transfer could have happened? Okay, olden days, the transfer generally happens after the death of the king or the emperor. So naturally, the scepter is given by the acharya or the priest, head priest, to the king, and they start the ruling. Okay, very rarely when the emperor is alive, the new king takes the throne. Very, very rarely. So that is why there won't be any, there may not be a historic references or sculptures where it says
that one gave it to another. Right, I understand.
One gave it to other. So that is why the head priest gives that. So that is one conclusion. The last point I want to make is when Congress spokesperson Nita says that, there is no reference to it, forget about the historic thousands of years, 2000 years of reference. Does she mean to say Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru committed a blunder by accepting this principle of taking the scepter from Tiruvavudurai Adinam? If she says so, then we can actually move on to the next point. Otherwise, it is actually ridiculing Nehru also. The Congress now not only ridicules the Tamil culture, Indian culture and civilization, they also ridicule their own forefathers.
Okay, let me bring in Desh Ratan Nigam. I'll give Meeta an opportunity to respond to that. Desh Ratan Nigam, is it appearing a little bit like hair splitting? That, it's a symbol of transfer of power, which you could argue not proved, etc. But, all of these markers of the king or a ruler, whichever term you want to use, obviously in independent India, as far as the government is concerned, you would not like to use terms like ruler. But of course, in ancient tradition, it was meant to be for the ruler, to mark the ruler and to remind them of their promise to rule fairly and justly. is it then hair splitting to get into whether it was a symbol of transfer of power or not?
Well, Shivani, in fact, I completely agree with Mr. Seshadri's analysis, because when a scepter is being passed from one king to another to rule justly and fairly, it can only be termed as transfer of power. That is what logic desires and logic speaks. Whether there are references or not, it is immaterial. When it is going from one king to the other to rule justly and fairly, that means a single scepter is changing hands from one king to other. That means transfer of power is automatically taking place, and with a rider that he has to rule justly and fairly. Therefore, and also last I heard, Nehru never walked with a walking stick at the time of independence. So I'm sure the Lord Mountbatten never gave him as a walking stick. So let us not make fool of ourselves. Let the immature politicians come out of their closet and start accepting certain civilizational Indian values. Culture.
This is not even unique to Indian cultures, by the way. It is not something unique to India alone. In historical kingdoms, there were symbols of power that were transferred from one to another. If something is a symbol of power and it changes hands, whether post-death or whether someone is still alive, it can be only considered a transfer of power.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just common sense.
In law also, I'm telling you as a lawyer, this happens, because when you pass on certain thing to somebody, it carries with it what it is meant to be. It is not that you leave aside certain things and carry certain things forward. So in this case, Sengol represents, that you have to rule justly and fairly, and it is changing hands from one king to other. It is but natural that it is a transfer of power.
All right. Let me come to the other big issue I'm discussing, and I'll give all of our panelists an opportunity. Pradeep, I'm coming to first to you. You mentioned at the very start that you're very happy that quote-unquote North Indians are accepting or talking about the symbols of South India. I remember you were on a debate with me when we were discussing Kamal Hassan's comment about how Cholas, whether they are Hindus or not. But leave that aside. It's good to discuss history because we all learn a lot, even if belated. But is it not that the Sengol is once again a reflection that at least in post-independent India, a lot of our traditions, historical markers, things that are our heritage, including, let's say, the Sengol, were either suppressed or sidelined? The fact that not many knew about the Sengol or even the Sengol transfer during independence in itself shows that so much has been sidelined or relegated to just mere footnotes. On top of that is the charge that this was kept at the Allahabad Museum as a mere walking stick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm so happy that the Sengol has finally found a place where it really deserves it. In fact, I would hope that along with the Sengol, they have a few passages from the Sangam literature, which actually, and there are 4 or 5 of them, is fairly easy to read, which all talk about how parliamentarians should behave, how they should not let the trappings of power feed into their ego, and they need to remember that they need to ultimately do good for the people. So I think it's gone to the right place. Absolutely. I mean, you take facts, yeah. Today, all of us in India know much more about the Mughals than anybody else. But which is the longest ruling dynasty, not just in India, but probably across the world? It's the Pandyas. Nobody has even heard of them. So it's about time that we reclaimed all these kind of things and got back our history and heritage.
Okay, Meeta,
and we got to be proud of these kind of things. How many people know that many think that democracy itself was a gift of the British? We've had fairly sophisticated democratic systems in Tamil Nadu, in Manur, in Uttamarur, in places. We don't find these in books.
No, the Greek are considered the ones who came up with democracy. But we, as you're saying, in India, we had democratic models well before the Greek.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let me bring in
not before the Greek, but before the British for sure.
All right, let me bring in Meeta as well. Meeta, the charge that the Congress faces always, and this particular moment is also becoming a reflection of that, is that you've always been very uncomfortable of any Indic traditions, symbols and such. And even Indian history was relegated, and in the post-independence era, leftists ruled the roost, especially in the terms of education. And a lot of what Indians should have been proud of was sidelined.
Okay, you are putting this allegation, or you're saying a section of the public discourse has been putting this allegation on Indian National Congress, the party that has fought for India's independence and has a party where the Prime Minister One of our former prime ministers, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, had split up Pakistan into two parts and changed the geography, the geographical map of the world forever.
No, that's not
So the
related.
party
That's
that has
not
fought for
related.
Indian
I'm
independence
particularly
is now
talking
being
about
that
history.
we are not
And as our
being paid
panelist
what we
also is
deserve, or we are
talking
not
about,
being
why
Indian
don't
enough.
we,
That
why
is
don't our
laughable.
kids study
At
more
that
about,
moment, can I come back?
Indic kingdoms? And why is it that this
That
stick
is-
was
that
kept
is
at Allahabad
laughable as
Museum as a
logic,
walking
that
stick?
is laughable as an accusation, but let me come back. So none of the co-panelists could provide, and I think many of your co-panelists very
No,
rightfully
Meeta, one second.
agreed that there are not enough documented evidences that in ancient history this was indeed a symbol of transfer of power. But this is not so much about symbolism. If we consider that this is a symbol for just an inclusive governance, which was the point that I was trying to make earlier, then why was the president, who is the rightful
No, but
person,
Meeta,
not
I'm not
invited?
discussing that today. Please,
50%
I've
of
given you the
people's
opportunity
mandates were
to
not
register
being
that
included.
point, but please don't take more time on that. I'm not discussing that today. We've discussed that ad nauseum. Why was this sceptre relegated in the Allahabad Museum as a mere walking stick? What's the defense of that?
It was not. It was not. We have never denied that Pandit Nehru
Shivani?
had not accepted
Sir, I'm coming
it.
to you.
All your co-panelists had said that, before Nehruji became the president, or before India had gained independence, it was the Britishers, and they were non-Hindus, right? So they were the ones who were governing what is now called India. And before that, in ancient history, there has been, many of your co-panelists agreed that there had been not enough documented evidences where it shows that.
But why was it kept as a walking stick? It still is not justified that this was a mere walking stick in a museum.
There are not enough documented
At least could have been reflected. Its history could have been reflected.
I know that BJP is all about event management. The
Okay, all right. Meeta, I have to go across to Narayan Tirupati.
Congratulations
Narayan
to them to carry on their events.
Why was this relegated as a walking stick in a museum? How are people going to learn about it and its historical significance then?
See, that is Congress. See, she was telling that, the Congress person was saying that it was the Congress party which fought for freedom of India. No, it is not the Congress party. It was the organization. It was a Congress organization under one umbrella. Everyone, each and everyone in India with different ideologies fought. We have to understand this. Even our Dr. Hedgewar was part of the Congress. The communists were part of the Congress. We need to understand this. As if this Congress party under the Rahul Gandhi, they have fought, they did not fight, for the freedom. And it is very, very clear. Today, the Dharmapuram, the Thiruvadurai Adinam has very clearly said that it has been documented in their mud that they have given.
The Adinam certainly has talked about how this entire ceremony was meant to symbolize the transfer of power. I think we should give value to their word as well.
Also, Shivani, there is, I heard that there is one person still he is alive.
Yes, and who was part of the ceremony.
Yes, and he will prove, he will say what has happened. And the Congress, as usual, they will lie so many things. And
I think irrespective of whether it was taken by the government as a symbol of transfer of power is irrelevant. The very fact that the ceremony took place, common sense dictates it was meant symbolically to suggest the rule is passing on from the Britishers to the Indians now. I don't think we need to hair split this anymore. But Deshratna Nigam, final comments. Are there so many aspects? Isn't this episode an example of so much of Indic history and wealth and knowledge being absolutely buried? Mr. Nigam.
Yes, in fact, if you read R.C. Majumdar, you will actually realize how much history has been hidden if you read his volumes. In fact, the committee at that point of time was formed, which government of India at that point of time wanted him to write history as per their wishes. He resigned from that committee and then wrote his own volumes. People like Jadunath Sarkar, people like Sitaram Goyal, they actually have brought out the history. Except Mughal history, nothing. Cholas, Pandyas, Maharana Pratap, the true history has not been given to us. That churan that we have been made to eat is actually coming out slowly and slowly. A sceptre which is so holy and symbolic has been turned into a walking stick. It's so, embarrassing for us. to even,
It should be
think-
embarrassing for us as a country, I must say, that, our young people don't have that transfer of knowledge, if I can, use that pun, from one generation to another, where they don't know the symbolism of these items that we had in our, in our history. Let me give Mr. Sriram a final opportunity to respond to this particular question. What has happened to our history and our historical symbols?
Shivani, from the time we got independence, my humble submission is the history of the great Indian nation has been systematically degraded, and we were not allowed to learn in the schools. Forget about the national syllabus of which Mr. Nigam talked about. Even in sectoral, even in linguistic states, the freedom fighters, the real freedom fighters, were not at all glorified, or our past history has never come out very, very forcefully. I think this is the bigger, and definitely we should hang our head in shame that a symbol of our actual civilization turned into a pride, and civilization turned into a joke, mockery, by putting this scepter as a golden stick which was given to Mr. Nehru. That's really a big embarrassment.
Okay.
Definitely undermining our civilization. I think, thanks to Mr. Modi and Prime Minister, this is getting rewritten, and hopefully that, this generation will read more about it and will actually gain knowledge about our history. Thanks for this episode by the Prime Minister.
I leave it at that, and I think it's also a reminder that it wasn't actually until the turn of independence, post-independence, when actually that shift happened. Because the fact that the ceremony took place, as one of our guests said, and even Pandit Nehru, who was an atheist, took part in a ceremony like this, meant that there was a reverence for Indic traditions. But it is something went wrong post-independence in the next 30, 40 years, and literally all of that wealth was sidelined or lost. I dare not say lost. I hope it can be revived in times to come. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Skipping into a very short break right now. On the other side, we'll get you the preview of the IPL Qualifier 2. Remember, Gujarat Titans are facing Mumbai Indians at the Narendra Modi Stadium shortly. We have a special report and a preview lined up.
The Sengol. Recreating history, Prime Minister Modi will receive the Sengol from Adhinams of Tamil Nadu before the inauguration and will place it inside the new Parliament Bhavan. CNN News 18's Pallavi Ghosh spoke exclusively to the descendants of the creator of Sengol. Listen in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amrinder Vimudi. And it's a big day for, I guess, for you. First of all, before I ask you about how you feel about it, can you just explain to our viewers the significance of Sengol and the history behind it?
Thank you for having me on your channel, and very happy to tell you that as a part of the family, and it's a great moment for our family and for our country. And this Sengol has actually come from this part of the country, which is makes us even more proud. The significance of a Sengol is it's a rule of the land. So whoever is ruling over the land has the Sengol. And the significance is that a lot of people could come and go, but the Sengol always remains the same. It's just to remind the person who's actually ruling it, the previous person ruled it with justice and with the right ethics. You should also do it with the same way.
And what are the parts of the Sengol? Because I believe there's a Nandi there. I was just looking at one of the pictures. So if you could just explain to our viewers what are the different parts and what each of it signifies. And if you have an idea, I'm sure you do, how it was made, how many people were involved in making it, and when was it made?
The Nandi has totally 3 parts. The sceptre has 3 parts. The top part is the Nandi. The bottom part, which is it's a little bit more bulged, which has the Lakshmi Ji on it. And below that, it has a nice twining design to finish the rest of the bottom. The Nandi is for justice. You would have also seen people in a Shiva temple. They'll go and tell their wishes to the Nandi, and the Nandi tells it to Shiva, and it comes true. So it's also a part of that. And below that, we have the Lakshmi Ji, just to show us prosperity.
And so I'm told it's made out of silver, but it's gold plated. So how many carats of gold? Yeah.
This is still made out of gold, and the entire thing is made of 22 carat of gold. And it will probably weigh around, what, say, 800 to a kilo of gold.
And it's in, and your family, of course, has been involved. Your family tree is involved. Have you got to see it? Have you gone there to see it? Do you have an idea of the history behind it? And when was the particular year when it was made? Yeah.
It was made in 1947. It should have maybe 30 days before the independence. The order had come in, and my grandfather and his brothers together have executed the job and then given it to the government. The design had come from the Adinam in Tiruvadadurai. So the significance of all of this is known by the Adinam, which is a mutt. It's a Shaivite mutt there.
Yes.
So they have given us the design, and we have executed the job and given it back to the government.
Have you ever gone to have a look at it yourself? Because it's in Allahabad Museum.
Yes.
No.
I had not gone to look at it, but a few of people of our team, when we first discovered it was there in Allahabad, two of my team members had gone to Allahabad and seen the Sengol, and we were actually very excited. And we also confirmed this was the Sengol because there was a Tamil inscription on the Sengol, and it actually signified as to what this was, when it was given, to whom it was given, and why it is given also. So it's very clearly mentioned in Tamil. So when our people went there, we were able to find out this was the right piece that we were looking for.
Amrita, have there been orders since the news broke out that it's going to be a part of Parliament? Have people coming to you with interest? Do they want to get a replica made for themselves as well?
I'm sure a lot of people will be having that interest. But as an organization, we've decided not to do a replica of this for commercial purposes, but for our own purpose and for people.
It's time now for the second qualifier of IPL season 2023, and we have another cracking match lined up for us because it's Gujarat Titans versus Mumbai Indians. But as the two teams get ready to seal a spot in the final of the season, let me take a quick look at what the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, where this match will be played, throws up as far as statistics is concerned. There have been a total of 25 matches that have been played at this venue. The team batting first has won 12 of them, and the team chasing has won 13 of them. So not much to choose between that. But there are some very interesting numbers as far as the two teams involved is concerned. So let me tell you, the highest total on this ground was a 227 for 2, which was actually scored by Gujarat Titans versus Lucknow Super Giants this season. The highest run chase is 207 for 7, which was by KKR, but against Gujarat Titans also this season. And the lowest total that has been defended at this ground is just 130, which was defended by the Delhi Capitals versus Gujarat Titans this season. So you see, the Gujarat Titans have actually been involved in very interesting matches as far as this venue is concerned. They've scored the highest total, but they have also been on the losing end of the highest run chase, and they've been on the losing end of the lowest score defended by a team at this ground. And you look at that range, it's 130 of the lowest score versus 207 of the highest chase at this ground. The average first inning score is 168, and any team batting first here in a match like the qualifier would of course want to put up a little bit more. In fact, they would like to achieve, especially with the batting prowess of both Gujarat Titans and Mumbai Indians, anywhere around 200 if they were to bat first. Let me tell you a little bit more about Gujarat Titans' record at the Narendra Modi Stadium. They've played 8 matches, have won 5 and lost 3. 3 of those winning matches were batting first and only 2 chasing, but you know that again doesn't leave much to choose from. As I mentioned, their highest total here has been 227 and their lowest total here has been 125. So you again look at the gap between those scores. Now, the Mumbai Indians record as far as the stadium is concerned, they've only played 3 matches here. They've won 1 and have lost 2. In fact, they lost the only match that they played against Gujarat Titans by 55 runs at this stadium. Mumbai have won their only match here at the Narendra Modi Stadium, batting first. They haven't won any match chasing. Their highest total has been 178. Their lowest has been 152. So it just shows that as far as batting on the Narendra Modi Stadium is concerned, Gujarat Titans have had very high scores, but they've also, of course, been defeated while Delhi was defending a very low score. So their graph goes up and down. Mumbai have been mostly in the range of 150 to 180. Let me also tell you a little bit more about the players who will be in fray as far as qualifier 2 is concerned and what is their record as far as the stadium is concerned. So Shubman Gill, of course, top of the order for the Gujarat Titans. He has played and he's also played for KKR at this stadium. So he has had 10 innings and he scored 500 runs at an average of 62 plus at this ground. So he, of course, will be looking to come good, especially after the disappointment of qualifier 1. There's David Miller, who's played here for Gujarat Titans and Punjab. He's had 8 innings, 208 runs, an average of 41. There's Shankar, who's played for Gujarat Titans here, only 4 innings, but he's scored 155 runs, an average of 38. Most wickets for players involved in this match. Shami, of course, he's been the star as far as the season is concerned. He has 18, Mohit has 12, and Rashid also has 12 on this ground.
What a big game we have on our hands, isn't it, Ketan? You know, just for the backdrop of this clash, of course, the stage is setting itself. It's the second qualifier, make or break, as we are calling it, and there's a place in the final up for grabs. But GT and MI this season are all square at 1-1. Gujarat won by 55 runs in Ahmedabad. Mumbai won by 27 runs at Wankhede. Gives you a sense that these are both, sides that like to bat big and possibly back the opposition out of the match. And once again, but this match, because it's happening in Ahmedabad, does that give Gujarat the slight edge, Chetan?
Hi, Shivani. No, I'm not sure if it gives Gujarat the edge despite the match being in Ahmedabad because the pitch is going to be suited to both batting lineups. As you rightly mentioned, they both like to bat well. They both like to bat big. Both sides like to chase, tall scores, do the impossible. So both would want to chase today, lay down the marker when presented with a target. In fact, so yes, the stakes couldn't be higher. Obviously, Mumbai Indians bouncing back from last season's disappointment. I think personally this is already a successful season for them. And Gujarat Titans, I mean, they're competing with Chennai Super Kings and Mumbai Indians to become the only repeat winner in the history of IPL. So, as you mentioned, lots at stake. Couldn't be more hyped up for this clash tonight.
It comes down to Mumbai's batting against Gujarat's bowling. That said, Gujarat have, like you mentioned, Gujarat have been able to put up big totals here. But, God forbid for them, Shubman Gill doesn't click. Where are those runs going to come from? Yes, of course, Shubman Gill's had a terrific year here. He's got hundreds here. He's got 94 not out here. If he clicks, we could be looking at 220 for Gujarat. But given the way that Mumbai have stormed into the playoffs, especially Cameron Green getting that 100 against Hyderabad, then the way their batsmen put up 182 in Chennai, no one got a 50, but a series of aggressive batting displays got them there. So I just think right now it's definitely, for me at least, it's advantage Mumbai on that batting track.
All right. Speaking of the track, Vineet, why don't you tell us what can we have in store for the match today?
Look, I'm standing here at the Narendra Modi Stadium and we had a look at the pitch, not exactly the pitch, but the entire studio that was covered. There are 9 pitches, 9 pitch here at the Narendra Modi Stadium, mix of black and red soil. The Delhi game that you mentioned about earlier was played on the red soil. And, most of those runs, high scoring, have been on the black soil. So it will be quite interesting which track they choose. What we can gather here is that it will be a fresh track. The least of the used tracks is what these days would be using. So that, in a way, as both Chetan and JD mentioned, would be advantage for Mumbai. But then again, if it is red soil versus Noor Ahmed, they'll come into play and Gujarat would be thinking on those lines as well.
But as we saw in that match against Chennai, just because Gill couldn't quite get going, he couldn't quite accelerate when they needed it, we didn't quite see the others pitch in. You could argue there were some decisions here and there that could have been to their downfall in that match. But do you think they've got a concern today?
I'm not really sure, Shivani. I mean, with due respect to Jamie's opinion, I haven't really felt that from Gujarat's point of view, because every time you look at the losses that they have encountered, they haven't necessarily come down to their batting in those such scenarios. I mean, you look at Hardik Pandya, he was 50 plus and he couldn't finish off the match. You had Rinku Singh scoring that chase. Those were not down to Gujarat's batting issues. I mean, they had scored 200 when Rinku chased it down. So there is some truth to it, because obviously he scored so many runs and the next one hasn't really scored 300 runs. So there is definitely some truth to it. Gujarat has also experimented with this batting lineup a lot. I mean, they had Sai Sudarshan at 3, then Vijay Shankar at 3, Hardik Pandya at 3. Basically, they've been experimenting too much. They don't really know what their 3, 4, 5, and it's a bit too late to really identify what is the right order there. And obviously, you can't really deny that they are dependent on Shubman Gill. There is no denying that. But to assume that just because he's not going to score, the rest will also fail, I think that's a bit of a stretch. And I say that especially because the conditions in the Ahmedabad would be batting friendly, and Gujarat would know these conditions really well. So maybe Jamie's opinion held right in the previous game because the pitch was a little tougher. But it would be slightly different. I think it would be slightly different given today's context of the game.
On top of that, they've got a bowling lineup which is the envy of every team in this contest. So not only do they have that batting, prowess, but they also have the best bowlers in the competition and people who've clicked together so well.
Absolutely. When you have Mohammad Shami and Rashid Khan, like literally vying for the purple cap, I mean, that's an outstanding pair to have, right? Mohammad Shami, outstanding in the power play. I was seeing the numbers. He's not got Rohit and Ishan Kishan a lot, but he's also not denied them runs. And that is almost as good as taking 1 wicket inside the power play if you're keeping 2 struggling batsmen quiet. Rashid Khan, I mean, he's Rashid Khan. I know stats-wise, this is his most expensive IPL. But when he's got 23, 24 wickets, no one's going to complain. But then look at the second layer, right? Noor Ahmed is done very, very well. Mohit Sharma has done very, very well. So of your 5, because let's face it, Hardik Pandya is not going to bowl once again. You have 5 bowling options. And of those 5, 4 are in the wicket. So exactly, it comes down to how well they bowl against Mumbai's batting. And that's it. If all their batsmen, like Chetan mentioned, if they all start to score, they're going to outrank Mumbai, because Mumbai, okay, the batting is great, but the bowling is not. Akash Madwal has been a revelation because he's taken 3 wickets, 4 wickets, and 5 wickets. That's as many, if not more, than what all the other pacers combined took. But Shubman Gill, Saha, we saw Saha at this very ground, got 80 something. He was man of the match. If David Miller has a good day, if Hardik Pandya can finally show up with the bat, this team is going to smash Mumbai Indians, right? So yes, absolutely. But those ifs and buts, we know how they work in cricket. Sounds great sometimes. If they don't fail, I'm going to stick my neck out and say, Shubman Gill goes, this team is not going to do anything again.
Just speaking about Rashid Khan, he's taken 6 wickets in 2 games versus the Mumbai Indians this season. So Vineet, regardless of the venue or anything, he would be raring to go because he's done so well against the Mumbai side. We've got Rashid Khan's figures. Of course, he's just only 1 behind Shami. And, I won't spend too much time talking about Shami. We all know what he's doing and what he's capable of. And earlier we were running statistics of Rashid Khan, the batsman. In the last match against Chennai, he was the second highest scorer after Shubman Gill. That just gives you a sense of what he's capable of doing with the bat.
You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. The showdown continues over the new Parliament building, which will be inaugurated on Sunday, but there is no end to the political face-off. From the cost of the project to it being called a vanity project, to the boycott call from 21 political parties over the breach of protocol, where they demand the building be inaugurated by the first citizen of India, that is President Draupadi Murmu, there is now a cultural showdown over the new Parliament. The Congress and the BJP are now trading barbs over the Sengol. The golden staff of the Chola kings passed from one ruler to the next. The sceptre was received by India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, from Lord Mountbatten to symbolically represent the transfer of power from the British to Indians. Even this time, it symbolizes the transfer of power from the British era Parliament